Giovanni's team yesterday. Certainly some interesting choices on there on how he can play the game. Took a little bit of a chat, but as a nice refresher, just looking at Giovanni's achievements, made the global finals in Players Cup 1, and a number of really good regional performances. Top 32, finalists, top 16, all thrown in there between 2019 and 2020. And the interesting thing on this team is two very potent combinations. The Ndidi and the Hatterene, the Torkoal and the Venusaur, that ever-present Landorus, which has been going on a tear in the games we've been covering, Sierra, and curiously enough, something that's definitely on the lower end of the usage, especially compared to its partner Rapid Strike, the single strike Urshifu for Giovanni's team to try and round this one out.
Well, if we want to talk low on the usage scale, I know on team there's definitely a lot of Pokemon that we haven't had the chance to really look at closer, and I'm excited to get into that. But first, just to recap and talk about Juan and what he's going to be bringing to this competition. LA Premier Champion, semi-finalist 2018, as well as a top 32 in regionals, fantastic competitions, so getting a placement there is amazing. But back to the team. There is that not so common single striker Shifu, but there's also that Thundurus. We normally see Thundurus in the incarnate form, but this one is the Therian form, which I'm really excited to see showcased with that Tapu Lele, which we also haven't gotten to see. Mamoswine, not the highest in usage, and it's going to be all rounded out with a Spectre and a Whimsicott.
Mamoswine actually one of my favorite Pokemon, something that whenever it's been available for use, I've always tried to play around, so I'm excited to see how this could be impactful here. There's definitely a very offensive team coming from Juan's side. I don't really see many options to slow down the game here. Everything is here to deal damage and move quickly, move even quicker with the assistance of the Whimsicott. So on Giovanni's side, something like the Ndidi and the Hatterene, maybe being able to play around with Trick Room a little bit, the Torkoal and the Venusaur able to capitalize off that. Interesting matchup, and hyper offensive teams like Juan's usually pretty exciting to a player like me who likes to see games really rush on by and just try and carve out those big advantages. They do rely a little bit heavily on making the correct predictions at all times, making sure that you don't misstep a single time, you never give your opponent any breathing room, and you just apply the pressure from turn one all the way to the end of the game.
Correct positioning and correct targeting. Of course, with hyper offensive, you don't want your opponent to be dealing back massive amount of damage. You know the possibilities there. You need to be trying to deal out your damage, but not have your key attackers go down. So it'll be really interesting to see how the players are navigating the matchup. So let's get into our first match to see what they're bringing out with and how they want to be starting off their run in the loser's bracket. Not starting off, how they're going to continue on. So continuing on is this Mamoswine. Next that are Shifu, and here's that Hatterene and Ndidi that you were talking about.
It can be a very strong combination together, and Giovanni agreeing that they just need to be put in the lead to try and get those early turns of advantage. So definitely the onus on Juan to try and shut this one down and keep it from being able to run away with the game. But you've got two Pokemon that can deal huge amounts of damage, the Mamoswine and the Urshifu there to try and cause chaos. The Urshifu obviously ignoring protects as well, so just being able to try and push an advantage down onto Juan's side as soon as possible.
Juan also looking for that early advantage, taking the opportunity to be going for a Dynamaxed Mamoswine. So Mamoswine's scary enough in its undynamax form, but here it's going to be a huge, but Geovanni, not one to be upstage, is also going to be going for that max, and I can only assume it's that Hatterene.
Hatterene with the G-Max, something we haven't seen for a little bit. I know a lot of players played around with it in earlier formats, but kind of waned a little bit on the usage stats, and now making a comeback here in Players Cup 4, immediately G-Maxing. Does usually need a little bit of help from the Ndidi, and that's exactly what it gets.
Yeah, this followed me here, taking the opportunity for this Hatterene to stay safe. The Ndidi, though, is going to be taking an attack from the Urshifu right off of the bat here. And, I mean, it's definitely not appreciating this one, as it's going to go down right on this first turn.
Really good adaptation from Juan, throwing out a move that hits multiple times to just completely ignore the focus sash that Indeedee carries. Hatterene left on its own, taking this max hailstorm, not taking it particularly comfortably, falling a little bit below half, but has to fire back with the G max smite. So really big attacks coming out from both sides, and yeah, Urshifu doesn't really have much of a chance to deal with that so comfortably.
Of course, and we see a lot of focus sash experience, but this one with the choice band, it means that is going to be taken out in just one hit. And with this G-Max move comes a nice little perk, and this Mamoswine is going to be confused going into the next turn. So definitely a little pesky thorn in the side for Juan here.
Definitely trying to cause some problems, and both the Urshifu actually on these teams are the choice band variety. They know about it. Single Strike really likes to play with the choice band, and here's the Urshifu with the choice band in response coming through onto Geovanni's side. Juan bringing the Spectrier though. Spectrier isn't going to appreciate seeing that Urshifu, but should be quicker, should be able to start causing some problems.
Yeah, Spectrier is so fast and so much of a pest to deal with, but being hit with a dark type is definitely something it doesn't appreciate, and Geovanni being able to put that pressure on it is certainly nice, and still has that confusion pressure onto the Mamoswine as well, as long as the Hatterene can take the next hit. But Geovanni taking the chance to really deliver what he wants to be doing here, and looks like he's just going to start it off with a max guard to not take a hit at all.
Both of these max guard, or both Pokemon playing a little bit safe. I like this from the Spectrier. The Mud Shot lowering the speed of the Urshifu, trying to help it out a little bit. Mamoswine really needs to hit here. I think this could swing the game very drastically, and there we go. The Max Quake connecting, no confusion. G-Max Smite not the most reliable, and Urshifu, thanks to the Mud Shot, not given a chance to play the game.
Urshifu, despite being such a dangerous threat with that speed drop, is taken out. Mamoswine coming in clutch when necessary, and this Hatterene stayed safe behind a max guard, but wasn't the intended target at all for this turn.
Fantastic targeting there from the side of Juan, knowing exactly that the Hatterene was going to be a little bit scared of something like a follow-up max hailstorm, just playing safe around it and respecting the presence that Urshifu brings, knowing about the choice band, taking a look at the team sheet and thinking, well, you can't protect, you've got no focus sash either, you've got the choice band, so as long as my Mud Shot gets you slow enough for my Mamoswine to be able to hit you, I'm in a great position to just deal with that. Acknowledging the Urshifu was more of a threat there. Really, really wise. Torkoal coming in, not the premium time, considering what's on the opposing side of the field.
And not the target either from the Spectre, is it's going to fire off a massive Shadow Ball into the Hatterene and taking it out. So it was so safe last turn, but unfortunately not going the same way around this time. And Spectre getting a nice little special attack boost from that Grim Nay as well. Of course, picking up the KOs means it's going to be hitting harder going forward. And Mamoswine coming through the confusion yet again, and does get the opportunity to fire off a Max Wake. The Torkoal did protect, but it's still going to take a nice healthy chunk of damage.
Torkoal getting lower and lower there. The special defense is going up. Probably not going to be relevant. I think this next turn should clean it up real easy for Juan. The Max Smite, the G-Max Smite that went down earlier, not able to have an impact with those confusions either. A really big loss. While it did great damage, while it did, of course, deal with the opposing Urshifu, just wasn't able to get those confusions that you kind of need to make it as valuable as some of the other G-Max moves. So not coming through there for Geovanni. Struggling to ever really get a foothold in this game, and just throwing in the towel early, potentially going back to the drawing board for game number 2 almost immediately.
Yeah, packing up that game with just a sad Torkoal out on the field, unable to stand up against those two absolutely dangerous Pokemon. So be really interesting to see in this game 3. Obviously, we saw on the turn 2 of Max, the Hatterene decided to go for the Max Guard, not the target. The Urshifu sitting there, the biggest threat, and not being able to capitalize off of that second turn and just getting KO'd on the third turn. So we talked about these hyper offensive teams, positioning, targeting, dealing out massive damage, and just a different targeting there. It just made all the difference.
Geovanni needs something more reliable to slow down than the confusion flip. It's good, and it can be really, really nasty if you make sure that the confusions are coming through. You don't really get to make sure, you just have to hope for them. But when those confusions come through, that would slow down a team like Juan's very, very significantly. And that's something that has to be looked at coming into game number 2. Can't just rely on Mamoswine not being able to attack. It landed 3 max moves even after the G-Max smite and its confusion, so wasn't able to slow it down at all. And, you know, the max moves, Mamoswine picked up 2 knockouts. That's a huge impact for that, while Hatterene really only managed to catch, you know, 1 and then had to protect, and then got knocked out by the Spectrier. So a little bit more needed, I think, from the G-Max Hatterene in this following game. But game 2 could be very, very different. If you land those confusion hits, if maybe there's some targeting and missteps from Juan, could be a whole lot different.
I mean, that's all it takes with these hyper-offensive teams. Just 1 turn ahead is all you need to be closing out a match. So let's get into this second game to see if he can keep up this time around. So to lead, Urshifu and Mamoswine coming out from Juan, which will be facing back down against this Indeedee and Hatterene.
This has got to be a change-up somewhere. The Indeedee just went down free of charge, taking, of course, that massive beat-up after the Choice Band, putting it in range to get knocked out and not have to worry about the Focus Sash. So something to think about for Geovanni on turn number 1 here. Doesn't want a quick and easy run back of that previous game. And I'm not sure where the new options come in. Looks like the same play for Juan. Just saying, well, it worked for me in game number 1. Why wouldn't it work for me in game number 2? Let's go run it back.
Of course, when you're up a game, you can take the opportunity to just be applying all of that pressure and really making it so your opponent has to respond here. So putting on all the pressure is going to be this Dynamax Mamoswine. The Indeedee, follow me yet again, keeping the Hatterene nice and safe, but there is no max on Geovanni's end this time around. But beat up is going to connect with this Indeedee. I mean, we saw how this went the first time around. We got to wait through the animation, but we inevitably know what fate this Indeedee is going to be suffering. But I mean, this second game is going to have a big switch up, and it is going to be first, actually, the Mamoswine. I'm getting ahead of myself here. We got to peek into what Geovanni was thinking. So excited to see that. And is not going to get the opportunity to actually go for it. The critical hit from this Mamoswine, picking up this clean KO, and Geovanni's lead just getting diminished here.
I think the Hatterene was being a little bit greedy there. Needed to be in the Dynamax form to be able to take that. It was alarmingly close last time to half. Obviously, the health being doubled, you get a bit of an insight into that one. And this turn 1 has been a disaster for Geovanni. Polanco not able to get anything achieved, really, trying to buy time for the Hatterene, maybe hoping there'd be a mix-up over on the side of Juan, saying, you know what, I'm gonna just think you know, maybe a Wicked Blow instead, and I'll be able to buy a turn that way by getting the Follow Me to take 2 attacks. Not how it worked out, though, and a really bad turn, putting just Torkoal and Urshifu on the field immediately. These two have got a 4v2 disadvantage staring them down, and a lot of work required. The problem is to take and really come back from these disadvantages, you need a lot of spread moves. While Torkoal has them, it's going to be getting hit before that, and Urshifu definitely a single target attacker every single time. So a huge swing needed from Geovanni, and I mean, this Torkoal is just in so much danger.
Oh, for sure. Both of these Pokemon are in so much danger. This Mamoswine is still a looming threat paired up with this Urshifu, and Juan still has 2 Pokemon in the back and able to just rip through Geovanni's lead here, definitely proving to be an advantage here. And this Urshifu is just going to be taking this opportunity to be swapping out into that Spectre, and Mamoswine, just for the max guard, kind of eyeing up what the Urshifu is going to do, does target into the Mamoswine, so not much happening this turn. The Torkoal does get the opportunity to be going for a Heat Wave, but of course the Mamoswine is safe. Spectre, not as much, but it does live that comfortably.
Cheeky little switch into the Spectre there, probably trying to absorb something like the close combat, which didn't go into that slot, or the potential Max Knuckle as well. But the Spectre takes a lot of damage on the way in. Still going to be exceptionally fast though, and maybe looking for an end game win con where the whole game is set up around Urshifu versus Urshifu. That's absolutely fine, and the Urshifu would be slower, assuming another Mud Shot hits. So knowing these are the last two on the field, looks like Juan is really keen on that Spectre, making sure that Urshifu Mirror is always going to be in his favor. The Mamoswine can deal comfortably with the Torkoal, don't have to worry about that. But finally, in the dying breaths of this game, when you're down to your last two, there is going to be the Dynamax through for Geovanni. I like seeing this massive Urshifu. It's got to be dealing more damage every single turn, and this is certainly one way to do it.
Yeah, it's one of those Pokemon we do not see the opportunity to Dynamax so often, but we get a little treat this time around. Spectre targeting into it with the Mudshot, just looking to lower the speed. Repeat of the game one here as Mamoswine fires off a Hailstorm into it as well. The Urshifu, though, in the max form, double HP, it does get to live that, and despite the weather change, the Torkoal did take a hit, which means later on it does get the opportunity to do something, which seemed a little unexpected. But first, this Urshifu, big Max Knuckle into this Mamoswine, a nice little attack boost to boot, and Geovanni doing what he can to just try and apply some of the pressure back.
Torkoal does land the Eruption and take the double knockout, so we're now down 2-2. Even the change of weather, not enough to save Juan's Mamoswine and Spectre there. So a really nice shift in momentum, but Juan probably feeling pretty confident in what he has available in the back to deal with this. Importantly, that Mud Shot connecting with the Urshifu. Now G-Max took a lot of damage as well from the Max Hailstorm, so should get cleaned up by the opposing Urshifu. And Tapu Lele coming in, that's probably going to be offered the opportunity to deal with Torkoal, while the opposing Urshifu deals with the opposing Urshifu. So really tough situation to be in for Geovanni, but at least he's given himself an option to stay in this game. The speed advantage just isn't with him though.
Urshifu starting it all off with a Wicked Blow, finally looking to start dealing with this Torkoal sitting pretty on Geovanni's side, and Tapu Lele cleaning up the Urshifu, bringing it down to a 2v1 here, and it's the same thing, this Torkoal against the world here, and at this point in the hail, and with two very healthy Pokemon on the side here, don't think this turtle is going to be enough to keep Geovanni's Players' Cup dream alive.
No way for that Torkoal to even try and stay safe. No way for it to attack first, and Geovanni sees that it wasn't enough. Really nice play from Juan, that Tapu Lele that we didn't see before.